Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Homeschool Concierge one-on-one series. We are very honored today to be featuring colleges that change lives.
I'm Wendy Eklund. I'm a homeschool mom and a longtime advocate for school choice and educating families and all of their options.
Hi, I'm Paige McKinney. It's me again. I am a longtime homeschooling, unschooling mom with mostly grown teens, looking ahead to our college years right now. So I'm very excited to have colleges that change lives with us today.
And we're with Homeschool Concierge, a nonprofit that we founded to help support the homeschool community.
So let me just tell you a couple things about what we do. We are an educational nonprofit organization run by homeschooling parents. We offer free virtual talks year-round on a variety of educational topics. We also have a free monthly newsletter with original content and resources. We also monitor and help the community respond to legislation that may be impacting homeschooling, charter schooling, and school choice in general. We have access on our website to lots of free resources to help you homeschool. And we also offer in-person virtual field trips, educational events, and workshops, especially now that we're looking forward to opening up more.
Yes.
And lastly, we offer homeschool and educational consulting for families as well as charter school staff.
We're really excited to have Lauren with us today from Colleges That Change Lives. I've been a huge fan for a very long time. I actually read the book, Colleges That Change Lives. I think my children were very small, not even thinking about college yet, but now I actually have a 17-year-old. So I'm so interested to learn more directly from you.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Paige. Hi, everybody. My name is Lauren Sefton, and I realize I'm wearing the same color that I was in my photo, my headshot photo. So it must be.
I thought you had planned it.
Must be the thing. But I am also glad that you're familiar with Colleges That Change Lives, and I'm excited to share with you a little bit more about what we feel is the mission of CTCL in sharing the value of a liberal arts and sciences education. I currently serve on the board of directors of Colleges That Change Lives, the nonprofit organization, and I have worked for Rhodes College, one of the member schools, for the last 19 years in admission. So I am excited to welcome you through this process, my own college search. I'm from New Jersey and came from a big public high school. So most of my college search experience was reading the Princeton Review's guidebook and trying to figure out what sounded good and what sounded interesting to me in a college search, and ultimately landed on wanting a small liberal arts and sciences college that was undergraduate focused, where I could be the center of attention. I'm an only child, if you hadn't picked that up yet. And I really knew that I wanted to be in a city, an urban environment. I didn't even want to be a train ride away from a city. I wanted to be right in the heart of a city, yet still have a campus, a residential campus feel. And so that shaped my own college search and college tours. And ultimately I ended up at Rhodes, fell in love with the school, fell in love with the city, and have never left. So first of all, congratulations. Good luck with your college search. If you are just starting out, let's address the elephant in the room. Your college search is going to look and feel different than you probably would have expected it to a couple of years ago. With COVID-19, colleges and universities understand that your transcript is going to look different. Even with the homeschooling experience, particularly if you were taking advantage of community college classes somewhere, we know that those classes looked different. Your online environment may have looked and felt different as well. And so your grading scale could have been affected by COVID. We understand that, we get that. We also understand that your ability to take or retake multiple times the standardized tests, the SAT and ACTs, has likely been limited depending on where you are and what stage of your college search. You should know that 34 of our Colleges That Change Lives member institutions are test optional. There is a school in Florida that was not able to be test optional due to Florida state guidelines because it is a public institution, but everybody else was on board with the test optional and one of our member institutions is test blind as well. But know that hundreds and hundreds and honestly thousands of colleges and universities have gone test optional either completely and have been for maybe decades, or just recently, this was the push for them to become test optional, or perhaps they have temporarily been test optional for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So it's worth exploring those options, and www.fairtest.org is a great resource to check on whether or not a college or university is considering test scores.
Thank you.
COVID-19 also allowed colleges and universities to really embrace virtual tours, virtual information sessions, all sorts of online experiences, programming where you can connect with faculty and current students in ways that you've never had access to before. And so this is something that will continue even as we as a country start to return to a sense of normalcy with the pandemic, and college campuses become open for in-person visits. We are all still going to keep a virtual component. So the silver lining of the pandemic was it forced all colleges and universities to create robust virtual offerings. And I think some of those will continue to remain and are a great way for you to explore colleges, particularly if you're doing kind of casting a big wide net and then later narrowing down your search and choosing those schools to visit. So, and we are curious about your ability to deal with challenges. College campuses have always been curious about that. You're joining a residential campus community. In many cases, you're being pushed in the classroom in ways that maybe you've never experienced before. And frankly, the pandemic has allowed all of the students, all of the population to figure out how we deal with those challenges. And this challenge certainly was a biggie. So how you dealt with it has a lot to say about who you are, and we recognize that, and we recognize that it's been hard. So don't be afraid to be honest and to share that information. But if there were areas of growth for you over the past year and a half, then this is an opportunity for you to figure out how you want to talk about that as well. But again, college admission counselors are all looking at context in your application review process. And so context in your transcript and your grades and your course selections, context in what kinds of activities you may or may not have been able to participate in, or passions or interests you may have been able to figure out and discover or not. And then context as well in your own college search and how you're demonstrating interest in exploring those colleges. So in thinking about a college search, one of the missions of the nonprofit of Colleges That Change Lives is to encourage students to look beyond the rankings and to really focus on fit. And so we know as you're trying to explore those options, US News and World Report rankings, or looking at top 10 lists, there's a top 10 list for everything out there. It gives you a chance to kind of frame a college search, but is that the best way to frame your college search? A lot of times we hear about with liberal arts and sciences schools, oh, those schools are too small, that's not what I want. Or wait a minute, can you actually study science at a liberal arts school? Yes, you can. Or these schools must be for liberals, it must be a political viewpoint. Or, as the author of Colleges That Change Lives book, Lauren Pope, would like to emphasize, well, no one has ever heard of these schools. No one, anywhere, ever. How many times has someone said, hey, have you taken a look at X college? And you're like, I've never even heard of that. Well, one of my favorite perspectives is to flip that and think about, from my point of view as an admission counselor, if I'm visiting with you at a college fair and your name is Susie and someone comes up and says, well, hey, have you heard of Susie? I think she'd be a great applicant to your school. Imagine if I just said, I've never even heard of Susie. We're not interested. So keep an open mind because this college search is really all about you and finding the right fit for you. And if anything, this past year of college admission numbers has shown more than ever, you need to focus on fit. Not necessarily on name brand recognition, focus on fit. So how do you go about doing that? Well, remember those US News and World Report rankings? I'm going to give you the insider tip about why I don't think this is going to be how you're going to figure out fit. Look at the way US News and World Report tries to determine their rankings. They're looking at things like peer assessment. Has the president of Rhodes College ever heard of that school? And what does she think about that school? Well, I can tell you, we know a lot about our peer institutions, but if you're a tiny school across the country, or even if you're a big school across the country, our president doesn't know you inside and out. They don't know all the things that a president would want to know before you make an assessment about whether or not that school is good. And what does that even mean? They're looking at alumni giving. They're looking at financial resources. But my question is, are those really important values, and are they weighted the way you think they should be in your own personal college search? So for example, in trying to figure out student excellence, which interestingly is only 10% of the US News and World Report rankings formula, almost 8% of that, just under 8% of that is based on scores, test scores. Only 2% is based on class ranking. Well, chances are you are at an educational experience that doesn't have class ranking. And how many of you think that your test score should judge basically the entire part of student excellence? So think about what's missing from this list. What are elements of a college experience that are really important to you when you're thinking about the next 4 years? Chances are you're not thinking about how much alumni actually donate to an alma mater as something that you're factoring into your own search. So here's another tool. It's a little bit different than US News and World Report. The GALLUP.PURDUE Index is a survey that was conducted with 30,000 alumni, college graduates, bachelor degree graduates across the US from all kinds of different institutions, but bachelor degrees, 4-year undergraduate bachelor degrees. And the goal of the index was to determine, is college worth it? They measured 5 areas of what they would call well-being. And so thinking about, the purpose, your motivation, figuring out a goal, your social well-being. Do you have a support structure, and are you excited about being part of a community, the fabric of a community? Your financial well-being, the engagement in your community, and your physical well-being, having good health. So thinking about alumni, you've graduated from college, let's think about these 5 areas of well-being, which to me are much more in line of measuring success than some of the things that we saw in that US News and World Report ranking.
Right.
The GALLUP.PURDUE Index found out, frankly, that the type of school that students went to was actually far less likely to be related to the quality of the alum's life, as were the experiences that they had in college. Mm-hmm. In fact, you were far more likely, you were twice as likely to say college was worth it. The return on investment, the money I paid to go to college was worth it if my professors cared about me as a person.
Right.
If I had at least one professor who made me excited about learning. If I had a mentor who really encouraged me to pursue my dreams. They were 1.5 times more likely to say that college was worth it if they were ultimately very engaged in an extracurricular activity or organizations, if they had an internship, if they worked on a project that took a semester or longer in times, if they had leadership positions in those clubs and organizations. So truly an investment, the college was worth an investment if they were invested, if that college was invested in the student during their 4 years, okay? These things that you see on the screen right now are things that smaller liberal arts and sciences colleges, and specifically CTCL schools, are very well known for.
Right.
So think about shaping your college search. How accessible are these kinds of opportunities for you in your 4 years of an undergraduate experience? There's another tool that colleges use to benchmark themselves against their peers in terms of student engagement, and that's called the National Survey of Student Engagement, NSSE. And just like that GALLUP.PURDUE Index, it was all about student engagement. How are undergraduate students engaged in the campus community? Through academics, with their peers, direct relationship with professors, that environment on campus. Did they get to study abroad? Did they get to do internships? Did they research with faculty and have that mentorship relationship? So these kinds of areas were really high impact. Some institutions that participate in the NSSE survey may post their NSSE results, some may not, but you can use these factors to start asking questions in your own college search about access to these kinds of opportunities. Right? So really think about it, because those things are really known for persistence. And then there's some other outcomes that you'll want to investigate as you're exploring your college options. When you look at just the cohort of Colleges That Change Lives member institutions, you're going to notice that there are over 40 Fulbright Scholars, which is a scholarship program that offers research and study and teaching opportunities in over 140 different countries to recent graduates. I know you're just trying to get into college right now, but there's this whole host of postgraduate fellowships that are uber selective, that are amazing opportunities. And CTCL schools have a tremendous track record in placing their graduates, their students, in these selective postgraduate fellowships. Many of you have probably heard of the Rhodes Scholarship, not related to Rhodes College, two totally different people that were named, the programs were named after. But amazing opportunities to get paid to do a graduate degree in Oxford, England, or the Watson is a one-year grant to travel around the world and do a purposeful independent exploration, a research project of your choosing while traveling around the world. The Gilman is another grant program where you actually get paid to do an internship overseas related to national security. So just amazing, amazing possibilities. CTCL schools also are considered top producers, Peace Corps volunteers. And then the other factor that I want you to think about with colleges that change lives schools is that they're very inclusive in their admission process. We all practice holistic admission. You are more than just a test score or a GPA number. You're more than just a statistic or more than just a number. We don't feed certain numerical criteria into a computer and it spits out an answer at the end whether or not you've been admitted. This is a chance where we really get to dive deeply into your entire application and your entire experience as a human being over the course of your 3.5 years of high school experience to figure out if you are the right fit for the campus community. And the average admission rate to CTCL schools is around 65%, which also interestingly happens to be the national average acceptance rate for four-year colleges and universities. Nobody ever thinks about that because we get completely hyped up in the news media about these super selective schools that are only admitting 2, 3, 5, 6% single digits. That's a handful of schools. The majority of the 4,000 colleges and universities across the US admit more than half of their applicants. And again, CTCL schools, our average acceptance rate is 65%. And it really is about what happens while students are on the college campus, not about the name that you're going to for that college campus. So here are questions that I want you to think about asking as you are participating in virtual opportunities, virtual tours, virtual alumni interviews or admission interviews, conversations with current students, when you're doing in-person tours or in-person interviews, or you're meeting a representative at maybe a college fair. Those might happen sooner rather than later. In fact, CTCL will be coming to possibly a place near you later this summer through our programs. So think about asking questions that are really going to get at the experiences that you have in college. Do professors care about their students and how do they demonstrate that? How does the school talk about mentoring? Do the faculty seem excited to be there? Do they want to meet with students? Or are they really there to focus on their own research or their own writing or their own professional career, and they're less invested in the actual student experience? Mm-hmm. Ask about long-term collaborative work with research. How do students and faculty partner together? Does that happen towards the beginning of your college experience? Does it only happen for seniors at the end of their college experience? Could it happen for longer than just a semester? And then how do students get involved in the campus, in the community? What kind of internship possibilities are available? What about leadership opportunities throughout the campus, whether it's student government or clubs or organizations? And do you have to be like the #1 best top student on campus to get all those leadership opportunities, or are there ways for everybody to find their niche? And what does that look like? So good questions to kind of think about and maybe pick up on as you're exploring. Now, remember how I talked about some of the misconceptions of a liberal arts and sciences school? You can study the sciences and will study the sciences. You will have the chance to have all different diverse viewpoints represented on campus. But there is also the, I think, misconception of the value of a liberal arts and sciences education. So if you'll indulge me for a minute, I'd like to talk a little bit about the liberal arts and why we think it's so important. And that's because the liberal arts education is preparing you for a lifetime of learning. You're going to study classes in the natural sciences, the social sciences, the fine arts, and the humanities, regardless of your major. You're going to learn a lot about a lot of different things with the hope that you will be able to have a foundation in all of the skill sets that you see listed on the screen, right? So if you think about it, these are important skills: creative thinking, collaborative work, the ability to communicate, and problem solving and critical thinking skills are important for yourself personally, but they're also the skills that employers are endorsing as being important in a college experience. So employers were asked whether colleges and universities should place more or less or the same emphasis on 17 different learning outcomes in a survey from the Association of American Colleges and Universities. And what they found was that employers really think that there should be more emphasis placed on the skill sets that you see on the screen. So not only are employers endorsing these skill sets, they're basically saying, this is what we really, really want, and this is what we're going to look for when we're hiring. And this is across all industries. Every single employer wants people who can write well, who can problem solve, who can think critically, who can help communicate ideas effectively, who can sit around a table with diverse backgrounds, diverse opinions, and come up with a solution for a problem that's maybe outside the box. And if you think about the values of liberal arts and sciences, a lot of times when we ask students, why do you want to go to college? They pick a career path. Well, chances are, statistics are telling us that you are going to be changing careers a lot over the course of your professional lifetime. And so we want to make sure that you are nimble thinkers and prepared across all different professional sectors, no matter what you decide to do. You are going to a liberal arts and sciences college, not for your first job out of college, but for your last job, to prepare you well for your last job as well. And so we really I want to make it clear, a liberal arts and sciences education focuses on these 5 competencies, regardless of your major, and regardless of your intentions, because we think they're important for everybody. This makes sense, right? If you think about going into business, if you want to be a business person, certainly you need to have an understanding of business and economics and math, but you're going to be a better business person if you also understand history and politics and global forces on a worldview economy. If you're interested in health professions, obviously you want your doctor to be well-versed in the sciences, but you're going to be a better doctor if you also have an understanding of philosophy and ethics, where you can help relate to patients with their life choice decisions. And in this day and age, you're going to be a better doctor if you also have an understanding of law. So let's think about that for a minute, and business practices. You certainly, as an engineer, need to have an understanding of physics and the way things are built, but you're going to be a better engineer if you also have an understanding and appreciation for art and the beauty about the way things are connected. So we really do feel like a liberal arts education provides a long-term return on investment. It is not just about getting into grad school. It is not just about that first job. It's about preparing for life. And again, common myth, let's bust some myths here, is that a liberal arts degree doesn't lead to an actual job or doesn't lead to a job that pays well. Well, remember, go back to that GALLUP.PURDUE index. Financial well-being was a big factor in alumni appreciation of return on investment. And the return on investment of liberal arts colleges is actually nearly $200,000 higher than the median for all colleges. And it's very close to those of the engineering schools or business schools, which typically get all the attention in the press about preparing you for a bigger paycheck as you get older. So truly think about some of these statistics. Liberal arts and colleges rank 3rd out of all college types in terms of median income 40 years after graduation. So it really, again, is not about your first job out of college. It's about truly looking at it over the course of an entire lifetime.
And Lauren, everything you're saying is such a beautiful extension of how we homeschool our children and the community that we bring them up in. So I just love it and feel such a connection to your schools.
Hooray! Yay! Excellent. Some of the next couple of slides are kind of more general in college search, so I don't know if that necessarily makes sense to cover right now, but do know that colleges that change lives schools and liberal arts and sciences schools, many of them are private schools, and so the initial price tag may look quite may look higher, especially when you're comparing them to in-state tuition at public universities. I think one of the common misconceptions about liberal arts institutions is they're just too expensive. And so in thinking about financial aid, know that there are lots of different types of financial aid.
Right.
Gift aid like scholarships and grants, self-help aid like work study or loans. And know that in general, when you look at colleges and universities, there are actually less than 100 colleges across the country that meet full need. But so many colleges and universities offer some forms of financial aid. So to receive the most generous financial aid package, when you're looking at fit, if you're really aiming for top scholarship consideration, you should be above average in a school's profile, academic profile, to be competitive for their higher level scholarships. Colleges often use financial aid, especially to woo, to attract those students, especially the stronger students. And institutional priorities can affect how aid is distributed as well. So some of this is a little bit of a mystery because at CTCL schools, there are 44 different institutions. That means there are 44 different financial aid policies.
Mm-hmm.
And if you end up looking at all 4,000 colleges and universities across the country and you end up applying to somewhere between the national average, well, I would be a bigger fan of 6 to 8, but you're probably going to apply more like 10. That's 10 different policies, 10 different processes for financial aid. So it's important for you to do your homework, make sure you're submitting the documents on time, and make sure you're asking lots of questions if financial aid is a big factor. But what I don't want you to do is be scared off by sticker price for any college or university when you're exploring, because some of the biggest sticker prices are also going to come with some of the biggest discounts as well, depending on the institution.
Right.
All right. All of this to say, you're probably like, hey, I thought we were supposed to talk about colleges that change lives. What is CTCL? Well, I was laying some groundwork in the general college search process and hopefully busting some myths along the way. Colleges that Change Lives is a nonprofit organization devoted to creating and supporting a student-centered college admission process. Given your own personal backgrounds in homeschooling, I imagine that this is speaking your language. We really want to support the goal of a student finding a college that helps you develop a lifelong love of learning and gives you a foundation for success no matter where your journey takes you. Yes. CTCL first started off as a book, Colleges That Change Lives, written by a man named Lauren Pope, who used to be an education editor for the New York Times. And in fact, when he was writing for the Times, he would constantly write articles about don't follow the rankings, find the right fit, don't follow the rankings. The rankings are not the way you should go about this. And people kept saying, well, fine, if you don't think we should use US News and World Report rankings, give us a list. Give us a list of schools we should look at. And he was like, you're missing the point of my message. But eventually he decided to put together a list of 40 colleges that he thought went beyond the rankings, probably schools that nobody had ever heard of, but schools that really focused on the undergraduate college experience. You would be a different person your first year to your fourth year by attending one of these schools. And so his first book came out in 1996. He didn't actually tell any of the schools that were part of the book that he was creating a book. Like, he toured everything, he figured out his 40, and then he reached out and was like, hey, I'm putting you in this book. If you want me to see whatever you want me to see, that's fine. You can show me whatever you want me to see, but I've already done my own experience and figured this out on my own. He wrote a couple different versions. The last revision by him was in 2006, and he was 92 years old, I think, in his last revision. So we realized that sadly he was not going to be with us forever. And so we created a nonprofit organization that was based on the members of the book, but was separate from the book. So CTCL does not own the rights to the book. There was a fourth revision of the book by another author in 2012. Hillary Oswald took away a few colleges and added 4 colleges. In 2018, Bard College, who was part of one of the original publications, one of the first versions, joined the nonprofit. And then, and then COVID happened, right? So, but anyway, so the original group was the original nonprofit traveling group was the 40 schools that were part of the 2006 revision or 2006 edition of the book, and then now plus BARD. And what we do is try to push back on.
I said that's the edition I have, the 2006 edition.
Oh, good. Very good. So we really try to push back on this media frenzy about college admissions. Like if I poll the audience and asked how many, just start naming colleges, just start naming them, you'd probably get about 12. You might get to like 25. Rarely would you get above that number, I feel like, unless you've just been super savvy diving into all of this information. There are, again, 4,000 colleges and universities across the country, so lots of tremendous institutions that you have never heard of, and we want you to explore those options, but try to explore this college search without as much stress as the media would like for you to believe that you have to have. We want you to look beyond the rankings. We want you to think about the value of a liberal arts education. And then as a nonprofit, we're also going to support the recruitment efforts of our member institutions. We are a group of 44 colleges and universities. We are all liberal arts and sciences schools. 42 of us are private, 2 are public. We cover the country from coast to coast, and our average enrollment is about 1,500 students. Now we can actually have from the smallest school of about 800 to the largest school of almost 3,000, but as an average, it's about 1,500. And you'll see all of our schools listed here on that list. Our 2 publics are Evergreen State College in Washington and New College of Florida. And we believe truly that every one of these institutions provides value. We are all liberal arts and sciences schools. We all are on the smaller side. We all are focused on the undergraduate student experience, but we all have incredibly unique offerings. Some of us are urban, some of us are suburban, some of us are rural in the middle of nowhere. Again, coast to coast. Some of us are going to be more conservative. Some of us are going to be more liberal leaning politically. We are all completely unique, and we're going to have some unique academic experiences as well. Like if you look at places like Hampshire or Evergreen, they really focus on letting students create their own major and have kind of like a molding your own education. Whereas a lot of the other schools are going to be more traditional or more structured, I should say, with choosing a major and choosing a minor. You've got some unusual experiences like Cornell College, which has a 1 class at a time model, which several colleges and universities across the country adopted during COVID. And I think found some benefit to that. But Cornell College has always been a 1 course at a time model. So some of you may love that experience and some of you may find that to be a challenge. Hiram, for example, has a tech and trek model where you look at the tech side, look at the trek side and not the tech side of our lives. So kind of an unusual, quirky thing. Many of us, we all actually support study abroad opportunities. I know at Rhodes, almost 80% of our students study abroad at least once, but Goucher actually requires all students to study abroad. So that's a great experience. We have an all women's college in the group, Agnes Scott. We have an all men's college in the group with Wabash. Most are Division III athletically, if we've got some athletes in the room. St. Mary's of California is Division I, and Hillsdale in Michigan and Eckerd in Florida are both Division II, and all the rest are Division III. So you can see we have some really interesting variety in this group, and I'm excited for you to explore and dive in a little bit more deeply into that. You are going to find my contact information on the screen with my email address, but more importantly, you're going to find the website for Colleges That Change Lives. The website has a relatively new college search engine. We added that search function just a few years ago, and so that should make it even easier if you want to search by geography or search by interest. And of course, please look at following at CTCL Colleges on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. CTCL also routinely does 4 college tours across the US. We do a West Coast tour, a Southern tour, a Midwest tour, and a Northeast tour, typically towards the end of July, beginning of August. This year, unofficially, because things have still been kind of, we're still up in the air, but it looks like we will not be hosting the West Coast tour this year, given restrictions, capacity restrictions, and some travel restrictions on the West Coast still. However, we are tentatively still planning on traveling to Texas and do the Southern tour, the Midwest tour, and possibly even New York and Boston. So depending on where you are in the country, I know we do have a lot of West Coast folks probably in the audience. So that one may not be one you can do in person this late summer, but if you are somewhere else in the country, please take a look at our website soon. We'll be posting those events as soon as we make sure that we are safely able to travel and do that. And those programs are a great way for you to interact with the mission counselors from anywhere between 34 and 40 of the colleges that change lives. So we probably won't all be there, especially this year, but many of us will be present in the same room and excited to see you face to face. We also started offering, like so many colleges and universities did, CTCL started offering virtual programs through during the pandemic, and that's something we will continue to do. And we will offer again this late summer or early fall as well. So if you are signed up on our website for more information on CTCL, then you will get an email that lets you know when those events are happening. But the virtual events are through StriveScan. And some of you who maybe have already done some virtual college fairs through StriveScan, but it's a nice way for us to introduce our schools in small nuggets. And you get to learn a lot about a lot of different schools in small chunks of time.
Right.
So with that, I am very excited to help answer any additional questions about colleges that change lives, about liberal arts and sciences, about the general college search process.
I have a question. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it, but about 2 years ago, I took my son to a college scholarship information fair, and they had kind of explained what you were starting to explain about how a school may have what looks like a higher price tag, but when you factor in all the things that the school can offer you, that price tag actually can come below the local California colleges that you might consider as your child's only option. So I don't know if you could go into a little more detail, because I'm not sure I'm explaining it right, but that was really exciting to me.
Yes, absolutely. I think so many families, you see the price on a college brochure or a website and you think that is ridiculous. There is no way we can afford that. And then you may just move on. And that's really scary for us in college admissions. So because that is oftentimes not true. So as much as I don't want to equate college shopping to car shopping, in this one case, I am going to say college shopping is a little bit like car shopping when it comes to your dollars that you're spending. Because if any of you walk onto a car lot and buy a car without negotiation, without a discount, you just literally pay the sticker price on the car window, you are doing it wrong, right? So if that's you, then you've just tuned me out and I can't help you. But nobody does that, right? We all negotiate, we all push back, we all do our research, we all ask for assistance in various forms, and almost all of us take out a loan and invest in that car that we want to eventually drive off the lot. College dollars is very similar. So when you see that price tag, know that first of all, that price tag is actually already discounted. So if you look at Rhodes as an example, our tuition fees, room and board, so the price tag that you would see on our sticker price is just under $63,000 per year. It actually costs us about $85,000 per year to educate you as a student.
Right.
So already you are getting over a $20,000 discount already. However, rarely are you actually going to pay $63,000 per year. Nobody's going to pay $63,000 per year because you are going to be considered for merit scholarships. Mm-hmm. You are going to apply for fellowships to help pay for that because you might be particularly interested in an area an academic area or an artistic area or community service or whatever the school may offer in terms of additional scholarships. So look at academic scholarships, then look at whatever those extra scholarships are that might be related to institutional priorities. Those all might have separate application processes. Those all might have separate application deadlines, and it's on you to do your homework and make sure you're not missing out on those opportunities. But chances are your price tag is going to be even smaller because of scholarships. And then you're going to submit forms for financial aid. The federal financial aid form is the FAFSA, free application for federal student aid. Every single college or university that accepts federal funding is going to ask for that FAFSA document. But some are also going to use the information they obtain in that FAFSA to help allocate institutional funding as well. Some colleges may also have an additional financial aid form. And then this is how you're considered for federal loans, federal grants, federal student employment, and institutional funding or gift aid from a university.
Right.
All of which then again reduces your cost of
Right.
attendance.
Right.
And then with the loan option, I mentioned the FAFSA helps you be eligible for federal loans. Just like you would pay for a loan for that car, many schools are also going to give you the chance to invest in yourself and participate in a student loan to help pay for the cost of college as well. And I know loan has become like the new, or not the new, but has become a dirty word. And you should not be scared of the federal loans for students. Those are designed for undergraduate students to invest in themselves and to help pay for their undergraduate college education. You want to make sure you're taking on a reasonable amount of debt to afford a school, but don't be scared of taking on a federal student loan. That is truly designed for the student to invest in themselves and have some skin in the game. And frankly, we have found our students who take out student loans, again, those federal student loans intended for undergraduate education, actually do better than those who don't, because they are investing in themselves. They know why they're going to college. They know why they're going to class every day. They're trying to get as much as they possibly can about that process. So when you look at especially private schools, because there's so much institutional funding and because there's so much flexibility about how private schools allocate their institutional dollars, there's oftentimes a lot more financial aid than you would even realize. And that means a lot of times your price tag for a private school is potentially very similar or close to that of an in-state public school.
Right. And I love your example of shopping for a car and taking a loan out for a car, because we all know as soon as you drive that car off the lot, it depreciates in value, but your college education is only going to go up in value, appreciate the value. And I love your example of paying for it yourself, because my parents paid for my first year of college. I was at community college, but I went to the beach every day. I had no interest in being at school. So then I was like, oh my gosh, I can't have them pay for it again. So I paid for it myself. And then I graduated and got my bachelor's eventually, but I paid for it myself. So I think there is something to be said for that.
And no, especially at CTCL schools, especially at HBCUs, the smaller liberal arts colleges, there's a lot of hand-holding that goes into the admission process, but also the financial aid process. That's part of the advantage of going to a school that's part of the CTCL consortium. We're focused on that undergraduate experience. Well, that starts in the admission process. And so don't be afraid to call, text, email, ask your admission counselor to sit down and walk you through all of the financial aid information and opportunities that are available. And then certainly when you get your financial aid package, call, email, text, and say, I want to walk through this. I want to make sure I understand everything about it. We will all do that. We will all gladly walk you line by line by line so that you know exactly what you're getting into and exactly, hopefully, how affordable college may or may not be for you at that particular institution. So use your resources.
As homeschool parents, we always ask questions. We're always advocating for our children. And I think there's no different. Make sure you're asking questions. I have found that admission counselors always want to answer your questions. They're always there to help. So thank you. Thank you for doing that.
Well, and it has become more and more. I mean, we all we all have texting now. We all have email. I mean, you know, it used to be that you only could call, right? And then you might email, but I would only be able to answer when I was like back in my hotel room. Well, now we're all connected all the time. So it is very
Well,
easy.
I remember I was so nervous about even asking you to do this. And then you're like, yes, of course I'll do it. So like, you just have such a hopeful spirit. And I think a lot of college admission counselors, they want to help students find the right school, and they hope that their school is that right school. So they're going to do what they can. And thank you.
Absolutely.
Paige, did you have a question? I interrupted you, I think.
No, it's okay. I just wanted, before we go, just to let our audience know that I'm in the process of helping my son apply for 2 CTCL schools in Pennsylvania, Allegheny, and I don't know how to pronounce it. I always get it wrong. Yes, that one. And everybody there has been so accessible. They make us feel like we're already a part of the family.
Right.
Like we haven't even submitted our application. We're almost there, but they've just been, they know us by name. I'm in an email loop with several people. Everyone remembers to hit reply all. Everyone's talking. It's really great. And it's been such a change for us to feel like they want us. Like they would be so happy to have us, especially having traversed this very untraditional educational path.
Right.
You know, I was worried. And it's so competitive when you're looking at these schools that are so selective, and you start to worry, did I make the right choices on this untraditional path? My children have so much knowledge that may not be asked on a test. You know,
Right.
we volunteered for 3 years at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach. They know all about marine biology. They can tell you all about the animals that may never hit the test questions on the SATs. And so when we were watching our friends going through the admissions process and the fear that they had and the rejection letters that would come in, I was filled with such dread about the college search process. And then I went to a CTCL fair, Universal City, and I was thinking ahead, so this was 2017, and it was a life-changing experience for me as a homeschool mom. It was student-centered. It was about kids asking the questions, getting involved. It was kind of just, the finances were important, but like you said, everybody has a different financial aid package, so the primary focus wasn't on, you know, get into like something that has a status for the parents to feel good, or get into a school that parents can afford. It was, what do you want to get out of the experience? Let's make this about you. And having done that for most of our lives, I almost wanted to cry, like, oh, I love you people. And then when I bought the book, so I bought the book kind of after I had this fully immersive experience, and it's an hour, I think, or was it? It's a 2-hour experience, I think, but it's 1 hour in a room with the counselors. But you can like scan with your phone, and then they all send you information, and that's how you can get in touch afterward. So sometimes I think we talked to the guy from Antioch. He was so engaging, and we weren't even interested in the school in the end, but we spoke with him for like 25 minutes. And it was just giving my kids, letting them take the lead, letting them walk the room, letting them decide what interests me. And so then when I got the book, we went and looked at the different schools, and they couldn't be more different. Evergreen has narrative evaluations. They don't have grades, even though they're a public university. That was shocking to me. St. John's has this is it St. John's, the great books? And is that the one where you don't even have to have a textbook? You read the Westerns, and so you're just reading these great books, and you don't have to worry about like carrying around all these textbooks. Little things like that, little details that you're going to get when you talk to the people, when you read the book. And we are just so excited. And then the great ending result is that the financial thing, the results that we were getting back, they were the same as the intuition, in what is it called, in-state tuition from the schools that are so competitive. And I mean, it's just so amazing. So you guys,
Dreams come true, Lauren.
yeah.
I'm glad that experience was so affirming, Paige. That's exactly what we hope for all of our families. The traditional in-person CTCL experience it's a half-hour presentation, basically reminding you that you all have value. Every single student has something of interest to a future college home. It's just making sure, first of all, that you figure out what those are, that you know yourself, that you have thought carefully about your college search and what you're looking forward to getting out of your college experience, and being able to share that with a future college by way of the application, but that every single one of you has something to value and something to offer to your future college home. And then you go into a more traditional college fair format, where you get to interact with all of us. And it as an admission counselor, it's one of my favorite programs to do because it is so collaborative. You might come up to my table and say, I'm super interested in dance. And I will say, you sound so interesting and so amazing. Rhodes has these dance opportunities, but really you need to be looking at Juniata, or you need to be looking at this school, and this school. Go check that out. And so it's not a cutthroat competition experience in the admission world, but also in your own college experience as well. We hope that it starts with the admission process and continues for all 4 years that you're enrolled. So
I think even if students don't end up applying, just learning about your mission and reading the book and maybe attending a fair, because you guys usually do them all over. I think it will change their mindset and help them realize that it's kind of like dating in a way. Like, you don't want your kid to just, date the one person who likes them.
Right.
You want your kid to like the person too. And yet I feel like with the college experience in some competitive parts of the country and some competitive schools, it's the kid feeling like, I just want them to like me. But then you wonder, well, hang on, do you even want to go to that school?
Right.
Do you like them?
We have often joked that the best way to get a college to have the rankings off the charts and become one of the best known schools is literally to start a college, admit nobody,
right,
or even more competitive than ever before. And so in that case, it really is, if you're looking at a school that only admits 6% of their applicants, that means they're rejecting almost all of their applicants. And so it doesn't matter how amazing a fit you are for that school, they can't afford to admit everybody who would be a good fit. In fact, they can't afford to admit almost anybody. And so it really becomes a game of chance and luck. Did your file get read on a Tuesday morning, or did it get read on a Thursday afternoon? I don't know. Which one was better? I don't know. Right. And so it really is a different way of thinking about it. And it's hard not to take the college decisions personally. But if you are only looking at uber selective schools, none of it is fair and none of it is personal.
Right.
Ever.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're looking at the right fit and you're looking at schools like our CTCL schools that typically admit more than half of their applicants, they're still not able to admit everybody who is admissible, but they're able to admit a lot more students that'll be great fits for the community.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to say too is I really started thinking, when I started thinking student-centered, what is the freshman experience going to look like? I think when you start to realize, well, maybe at a big, huge school, they're not even going to be interacting with the instructor. And they're going to be lost in this sea of other freshmen.
Mm-hmm.
And so then I started thinking, well, look at these smaller schools that are offering the same kind of instruction that homeschool families have chosen. Even when it reaches an age where you cannot offer instruction, you and your teenager are just like, no, we're not working out. You find a small class. They go to community college sometimes and have a smaller class size there too. And so thinking of 200 plus students, and then not even being graded or evaluated by the instructor.
Oftentimes by a grad assistant, right?
Yeah.
Right.
The other thing is, I think students will oftentimes think, I've done small, I want something bigger. And sometimes are less likely to explore a smaller school. And you have to remember that small, when you're used to 5 or 10 students, or you're used to a homeschool environment, but especially a homeschool environment where you were literally the only person in the room where the focus is. But even the cohorts where you only have 20, 30, 50 people, an entire cohort, anything is going to be a bigger experience, and
Yes.
college in general is going to be a different kind of experience, especially with the campus feel. So I would also like to say, while I've got a platform of homeschool families, please make sure that you are advocating for yourself in the application. I think homeschool families do a great job of advocating for their students in the process. It's important for the student to be able to share that information with colleges and universities in the application.
Okay.
The Common Application used to have a required homeschool supplement. Now I think it's considered optional. But my advice is to share as much information as you possibly can about your homeschool philosophy, the way you went about your education, as much detail as possible about your curriculum choices, what a typical day might have looked like, or a typical semester might have looked like for your educational experience. Because, as you know, every homeschool experience is different.
Right.
And so if you don't share your own experience with the admission office, we won't know what it meant to be you as a student. You have to share that information with us, because that's how we can best advocate for you for admission and for scholarships. And I will, from personal experience, I will say, in some cases, if there is a lack of information, it is very challenging for me to advocate for a student, particularly when it comes to competitive scholarship information, because I don't have enough information to share with a committee. I might have enough information to say, I think the student will be successful at my institution, but sometimes I don't have enough information to say, I think the student is competitive for one of our top full scholarships. And so I need to know what it has meant to be you over the course of the last 4 years in an educational experience, so that I can best serve as your advocate. So don't be shy, toot your own horn, and share as much as you possibly can about what your education looked like. Because again, I've seen some homeschool families that have just knocked it out of the park, leaps and bounds, amazing experiences and amazing preparation for the most, the most ardent of lifelong learners. And then I've seen others that have left some gaps. And so you don't want me to make any sort of assumptions. You want to tell me how amazing your homeschool experience has been.
Right.
Thank you for that advice. Much appreciated. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Good luck to everybody with their college search. I promise you it will end well. It may not end the way you think it's going to end right this minute, but I promise you it will end well as long as you are thoughtful about this process. So I wish you the very best of luck, and hope to see you at a future Colleges That Change Lives program, either virtually or in person.
Thank you so much, Lauren. Yes, the best adventures are often not turning out the way you thought they were going to. So enjoy the ride, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Take care.